And hello everyone, welcome back to another HTML tutorial. It's been quite a while. I've been really badly procrastinating on this because HTML, it's not as fun as JavaScript and PHP and Python, all of these nice programming languages. But you kind of have to start with this in order to get to a lot of these other programming languages as well. Anyhow, let's not get discouraged in learning our nice HTML. So today we will be talking about span and div. These two are basically the same, but they work with different elements. For example, or let's actually start with what they are before we get to examples. So div and span are both basically just tags to contain something else. It is just a basic container. It just kind of splits your website into multiple parts. For example, we can have a div here, div, and instead of this div, we can maybe have like an h1, and here we can say my header, and underneath that we can have a p tag with my header text, right? And in here we can have another div, and in this one we can say h2, my section, and here we can have a p tag with a bunch of lorem, on it. So let's go 10. There we go. So now we have this, my header and my section. You'll notice nothing looks different. That is because div doesn't do anything. Div actually only, let me just format this, only gives you a little container to work with. Meaning that these two are on the same page, but they're kind of in their own little separate pages. I'm going to use some CSS here, but you don't need to know too much about CSS. We'll get to that. So I'm going to say style is equal to, that should be style, is equal to border 1px solid black. This just means put a border around this that is black, and it should have a width of 1 pixel. As you can see, this div contains this right here, meaning any styling that we give to this div here will stay within this div, meaning you can style different divisions of your page differently thanks to div. So instead of just styling the body and then styling everything inside of the body accordingly, you can now style something in this div differently from what you would style it here. For example, here we can also say style, and here we can maybe say font size, and here usually it's about 1 rem, which is 1 rem, that's what we usually have, or 16 pixels. Let's stay with that. So usually it's about 16 pixels per, that's what a font is usually. So let's make this nice and small. Let's make it 10 pixels. You'll notice that this changed, right? But not this. This stayed the same. Here we can even go and say font size, and this one we can make extra large. So let's say instead of 16, this would be 20 pixels. And now we have bigger text here. But this doesn't affect this. That's the difference. Div splits these two apart. So this is its own little div section, and you can even collapse it here. And then you can work underneath it. And you can have as many divs as you want. And this is a little thing. And inside of divs, you can also add another divs. So here we can say, here we can have another div, and this div will inherit any styling properties that this div gives it. And here we can maybe say, I am Steve. We can put this inside of a p tag, no problem. And we just put this at the end, save, and now we have this. And it kind of gets whatever is here. So as you can see, it gets that font size, not the border, right? The border is only around this div, while the font size gets inherited. And in here, of course, we can do things like style is equal to color red. Now this will just change the text color to red, as you can see there. Okay, now that's enough CSS and stuff because we still have to get to CSS and whatnot. But the main point here is divs allow you to split your website into multiple little boxes, and in these boxes can contain their own elements and stuff like that. Div is basically like a version of the body tag. That's basically what div is. Now let's talk about span. Now spans, just like divs, kind of contains something. For let's example say here we have a piece of text. We have it here and we have a lorem. So this is our piece of text here, right? Now the problem with this piece of text is, let's say we want to change the color of this right here. How will we go about that? Yes, we can maybe add an I tag here, but that will make it italic. So if we want to change the color, but we use an I tag, so just go like this and say style is equal to color red, just some basic CSS just to change color red. As you can see, it becomes italic. Okay, so let's change it to B to make it bold and change the color. But that will make it bold. So you're still with the same problem. Let's make it U. And you should turn it to U. There, auto renaming. But now it will be underlined. But we just want to change the color. Why is it such a big problem? Well, that's where the span tag comes in. Here we can say span. And this span tag basically means put this little piece of text here in its own little div. So span is like a little version of div, where span gets used with pieces of text, like small pieces of text, and div gets used with massive blocks of code. Because you won't really want to put a div inside of a p tag. It's kind of weird. So you'd rather use a span. And this can also be very nice when you work with programming like JavaScript and you want to maybe put some text here. For example, I am, and you want to put like a name here. Well, a way to tell JavaScript a name should come here is by saying span, and then just leave the span empty and go ID is equal to name. Now we still have to talk about a lot of this, like ID. We still have to talk about it. You didn't have to worry about it. But what we can now do is we can use JavaScript to target this ID with name and then put some text inside of here. That is where span can be really useful. It's kind of out of the scope of this video, so I'm not going to cover that, like using JavaScript, because JavaScript is something else entirely. But you kind of get the point. So div and span is kind of like containers for things. So where div contains massive blocks of code, and this can even include span, and where span includes like pieces of text or very small blocks of code. So yeah, that is div and span. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next HTML tutorial.